agora já não há problema. Sim.
Ora, muito bem-vindas e bem-vindos ao evento Mulheres pelo Clima, reforçar a ambição, amplificar o impacto da ação, promovido pela Business as Nature no âmbito do ciclo de eventos Mulheres pelo Clima, que conta com o apoio da ADEN, Agência para a Energia. E vamos começar com um momento bonito. Temos aqui connosco a Taline Carajá, que é mulher indígena, cantora e ativista. E agora vamos ouvi-la cantar. Obrigada.
Olá a todos. Boa tarde. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm so happy to stay here. Eu estou muito feliz por estar aqui e representar o meu povo. Vamos lá. Eu vou cantar uma música que fala sobre o amor pela terra. I am singing one song, and the song say the love, indigenous people love the earth. Querem passar o amaramunha, teta maita seu cá. Querem passar o amaramunha, teta maita seu cá. Oh, 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 Angawara. Oh, 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 Angawara. Semanhã eu vi. Oh, 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 Angawara. Oh, oh, oh. Semanhã eu vi. Querem passar o amaramunha, teta maita seu cá. Querem passar o amaramunha, teta maita seu cá. Oh, 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 Angawara. Oh, 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 Angawara. Semanhã Obrigada, Awire. Thank you so much. Thank you, everyone.
Nós é que agradecemos poder abrir o evento assim, desta forma tão bonita e tão simbólica do poder das mulheres na transformação do mundo e desta vontade de de tornar o mundo melhor. Agora vamos ter, para dar algumas palavras de boas-vindas, temos connosco a diretora da nova Ocean Knowledge Center, Associação Cristas, a quem passa a palavra.
Boa tarde a todas e a todos. Good afternoon. It's really a pleasure to be here and to replace my dear friend Graça Carvalho. She will join us hopefully. But meanwhile, first start to thank Tallinn Karaja for this very inspiring moment that we've had. And then my warm greetings to Lídia Bulcão, Secretary of State for the Ocean, that I had the opportunity to hear quite a few times in this COP, and always very inspiring in what has to do with our compromise as a country with the ocean. And of course, say a warm hello to Susana Viseu, which is leading women in many terms, but in her commitment with nature, with gender issues, and also with the ocean. And today we are in the day dedicated not only to the ocean, but also to women, to gender, to indigenous people, which I believe it's really a very insightful correlation, because we know that women are more or less a little bit more than half of humanity. And half of the humanity represents an immense force, huge energy, capable of transforming. And we know the sociological studies tells us that women are really sensitive and willing to take action and do make difference in everyday's life. All over the globe, women represent many decisions, namely in their households, within their families, but not only, in their communities, in engaging with topics that normally are not that interesting for men. And I always say, nothing against men, but everything pro women. We have nothing against men and what they do. We need everybody to be engaged, but we need women to be empowered. We need women to take the lead, to take the stage, to merge with each other, to take the most of each other, and to empower other women. And that's why I believe this event is so important, and we have to thank Women for Nature for this whole initiative last year with the signature of the compromise of women, these Women for Our Climate Action, that wants to embrace ambition, wants to raise ambition, wants to focus in concrete and consequent action. And the project is evolving, and Susanna will tell you all about it. But we feel that it's important to keep the momentum, keep the ball rolling, adding every year more people, more women, more men, pretty much welcomed, so that we can make a difference. And we know that when women are engaged and are powerful, they do make a difference, they do accelerate. So I wish a wonderful event, and once again, all the best, Susanna, for your project, and for all the speakers. I'm sure we will have a very fruitful discussion. Thank you so much.
Muito obrigada, doutora Assunção Cristas, pelas suas palavras. Passamos agora ao próximo painel. Temos agora a Presidente da Business as Nature, Susana Viseu, para nos falar da Gender Climate Coalition e que nos traz também alguns desafios para amplificar o impacto da ação no âmbito das questões de género e clima.
Não, eu acho que vou falar daqui agora. Muito obrigada. Muito obrigada, minha querida Assunção. I will speak in Portuguese, sorry. I will just compliment my dear Assunção for the nice and so clear introduction to the Secretary of State. Thank you to be here, all the present, all the participants in the panels. And I will start to present you what we have been doing in these years. And the slides are in English, but I will speak in Portuguese to embrace also our colleagues from the Portuguese-speaking countries. But the slides are in English. So, desde o Lima Working Program on Gender, portanto, que foi estabelecido este compromisso em 2014, que foram o NFCC, que tem vindo a ter vários marcos para a implementação deste nexo género e clima, no reconhecimento da importância que as Nações Unidas dão a trabalhar a componente do envolvimento das mulheres e das meninas na ação climática. Na COP de Madrid, em 2019, foi feita a revisão do Plano de Ação de Género e estava previsto em 2024 fazer essa revisão agora em Baku. Esse Lima Working Program on Gender, que desafiava os vários países a poderem implementar um programa de ação em cada um dos seus países, estabeleceu 5 áreas prioritárias de intervenção, em que temos... Aqui está. Estabeleceu 5 áreas prioritárias de intervenção e que permitiu abordar 5 áreas prioritárias de intervenção. Agora em Baku estava, como eu disse há pouco, previsto ao longo deste ano rever e trabalhar um novo Working Program on Gender, que tem vindo a ser difícil obter esse acordo em termos das negociações. Portanto, nesta fase estamos hoje a finalizar as negociações e aquilo que está a ser acordado será não a revisão propriamente do Working Program on Gender, mas estabelecer a revisão apenas do plano de ação e remeter para a COP no Brasil esta revisão. E como pano de fundo para aquilo que foram os trabalhos preparatórios em Bona, o relatório síntese estabeleceu várias conclusões de avaliação da implementação de iniciativas dentro de cada área prioritária de intervenção do Lima Working Program on Gender e revelou que o mais baixo número de iniciativas tem vindo a ser implementado pelo continente europeu. E, portanto, o que é de facto uma surpresa, não é? Porque, teoricamente, a Europa deveria estar também na linha da frente da implementação de iniciativas ligadas ao género e clima. Porque é que esta situação acontece? Pode ter vários motivos. Ou este tópico pode estar a ser subvalorizado nas negociações, ou de facto há mesmo poucas ações que estão a ser implementadas nos diferentes países europeus no nexo género e clima. Pode haver um reporting deficiente, uma falta de comunicação entre as áreas do género e as áreas do clima. Tradicionalmente estas áreas têm vindo em Portugal a estar pouco ligadas, portanto não tem havido uma comunicação entre estas duas áreas no sentido de se coordenarem para implementar ações concretas. E também em muitos países os próprios gender focal points, portanto os focal points de género, não estão ativos e, portanto, não comunicam uns com os outros. E, portanto, eu acredito que seja mais por estes temas do que propriamente por não haver ações, iniciativas concretas que estejam a ser desenvolvidas no nexo género e clima, mas por esta dificuldade de coordenação entre estas duas áreas que, de facto, a Europa tem apresentado este baixo número de iniciativas. Aquilo que também tem, em termos daquilo que tem sido a dificuldade em obter um acordo relativamente a esta questão, estas questões de género no âmbito daquilo que são as negociações climáticas, temos que se tem vindo a verificar esta dificuldade, podem ter também múltiplos motivos. Os países podem, sabemos que há países que estão presentes nas COPs e que têm questões de princípio muito diferentes em termos daquilo que são os direitos das mulheres. Nós sabemos que estão países na COP que não respeitam aquilo que são os direitos básicos em termos de igualdade, em termos do acesso das mulheres à educação, em termos daquilo que é a participação das mulheres no espaço público e que, de facto, não olham para este tema da igualdade de género e dos direitos humanos como um tema relevante no âmbito das negociações climáticas. Que lá está, acham que esta questão de género não faz sentido para alguns dos países estar a ser tratada no âmbito das questões ligadas com o clima. Depois também, os países que reconhecem que é importante trabalhar esta questão de género também têm aquela posição de, havendo muitas necessidades de financiamento para diferentes áreas, então trabalharmos mais esta componente de género, vamos ter que alocar financiamento também a esta componente. Então, talvez não seja tão bom acelerar este tema, porque temos aqui outros temas a que queremos dedicar atenção em termos de financiamento. E também, muitas vezes, a questão de género serve, tal como outros temas no âmbito da COP, servem de moeda de troca para outros temas no âmbito das negociações e, portanto, ficam até à última hora para conseguir ter essa moeda de troca. Neste sentido, e para dar resposta a este desafio do Lima Working Programme on Gender, a Business as Nature criou um movimento das mulheres pelo clima dos países de língua portuguesa para o mundo e que tem 6 pilares de atuação. Portanto, nós procuramos atuar e liderar pelo exemplo nestas 6 áreas: Climate Policy, Diplomacy and Activism, Empowerment and Capacity Building, Sustainable Entrepreneurship, Science, Technology and Knowledge, Dissemination, Communication and Participation, and Cooperation Networking. E, portanto, são estes os pilares da nossa atuação e temos um plano de ação com 12 iniciativas concretas. Na última COP no Dubai, conseguimos assinar uma carta de compromisso política por parte de todos os representantes governamentais dos países de língua portuguesa e que nesta carta foi assumido este entendimento de monitorizar e continuamente avaliar o progresso destas ações de iniciativas ligadas a mulheres e à ação climática. E nesta carta de compromisso, as partes acordaram em adotar e implementar todo um conjunto de iniciativas desenhadas no âmbito do Plano de Ação das Mulheres pelo Clima, seja nas questões ligadas à criação de maior capacitação, das questões também de integrar as mulheres no planeamento e nos fóruns de decisão, seja na cooperação entre os vários países da CPLP e os países observadores e, portanto, tem um conjunto de compromissos que podem depois consultar nessa nossa carta de compromisso. Aquilo que queremos agora, a partir daqui, é reforçar a ambição amplificando a ação deste movimento das mulheres pelo clima. E nesse sentido pretendemos criar uma Global Coalition Gender and Climate, em que estamos a dar hoje aqui o pontapé de saída para esta discussão, no sentido de no próximo ano no Brasil podermos formalizar na COP30 no Brasil, com os nossos irmãos brasileiros e com os nossos irmãos dos países de língua portuguesa, podermos formalizar esta carta de compromisso, trazendo já para a primeira linha países observadores da CPLP e países que fora da CPLP tenham este mesmo alinhamento de colaborar nesta coalition. Porquê? Porque temos um impacto desproporcionado dos efeitos das alterações climáticas nas mulheres, porque já falámos nesta dimensão multidimensional do empoderamento das mulheres na agenda do clima e no alcance dos Objetivos de Desenvolvimento Sustentável. E deixamos aqui para discussão já do próximo painel aquilo que são os primeiros passos que nós sugerimos que possam ser discutidos como os próximos passos para atingir esta Global Coalition. Portanto, são pontos para a vossa reflexão no painel. Começarmos por definir claramente os objetivos e a visão desta coalition, mapear o ecossistema, criar uma rede de parceiros juntando os países, as empresas e a sociedade civil, desenvolver a proposta de valor, recrutar os fundadores, portanto os países, mas também as empresas e as organizações da sociedade civil fundadoras, criar um plano de ação inicial, uma estratégia de comunicação e organizar, planear os vários eventos de networking e de disseminação e divulgação deste projeto. Temos como base, isto é um draft também for discussion in the panel, a value proposition, advocacy and influence, capacity building and education, empowering women at all levels, a collaboration platform, fund for local initiatives, technology support and innovation. So these are the main points for your discussion, and we hope to hear from you, to hear your advice and how we can go to this road to Brazil in order to create this coalition, because it's really very important to create this coalition in order to reinforce the ambition and to really make happen on the field all these initiatives that Business as Nature has been implementing in Portugal, but in order that we can create this multilateral cooperation to implement from the developed countries to the countries in developing countries these initiatives to empower women and girls for climate initiatives. Thank you so much.
We will now move on to the panel, which will be held in English, and where we challenge our guests to reflect on this challenge of creating gender and climate coalition and the path that can be taken in this context until the next COP that will be held in Brazil. In a conversation moderated by Ana Lúcia Grizzi from Ernst & Young, Brazil, and which I thank you. And now I will call the rest of our guests. We have Ryan Ballo, Climate Coordinator for the Bureau of European Affairs of the U.S. State Department, Catarina Carvalho from UN Women, and we have Cecilia Silva, National Director for Climate Action and Sustainable Development of Angola, in representation of the Secretary of State.
So it's a pleasure to be here. Thank you so much for the invitation. I'm honored to be in this panel, and I'm really eager to listen to you on the paths that we should take in order to really launch this global coalition, Gender and Climate, when we reach Belém next year. So let me start here. Which would be the real first steps, thinking in the short term now, for the next 2 or 3 months, let's say, that we should take in order to start drafting and also implementing the actions, as we only have 1 year to be there? Could I start with you, please?
Yes, and thank you very much for inviting the United States here, and thank you to the State Secretary. So I think the main thing and the main theme is always inclusion. And inclusion always starts with women and girls, so nothing without them. Right? So when you start the programs, you have to think about them, include them. And then inclusion also includes men and boys. So it has to be all together. It's a group project combating climate change. And so I think really when you start, you always have to start with the community, the local community. And the United States government is certainly behind always supporting gender, but always inclusive.
Okay, so first step would be inclusion, and then ladies, please help me out here. Which are the next ones?
After you. Okay. No, thank you very much. And first of all, let me start by thanking the Portuguese government, SIG, and the business nature, and especially Vera, for Susana. Sorry, for for having me here. I mean, we met in the corridors of the Secretary of State for Gender Equality in Lisbon by chance. So I think that's already a very good moment for us to this partnership. And let me start by also talking about how the Secretary General of the United Nations 2 years back challenged us and said we need to put women in his common agenda, how we put women and girls at the center. And that's when we start this whole discussion about the synergies and how the coordination. And I would like, first of all, to explain this is a QR code. And you can see the report of UN Women on the synergies between the conventions, the Rio Conventions, and climate. So when we talk about the synergies, how we see not only the coordination of the different Rio Conventions and how women and girls are at the center of that, but also how that is coordinated with the other UN processes. Because many times we see, we look at things in silos, and we need to stop doing that. We need to look at the Rio Conventions together with the Platform for Action of Beijing, together with the Financing for Development, and all of these processes that are all interlinked, and how we see women and girls in the middle, and how can we push them. The other thing is we need to stop looking at climate. Climate is not gender neutral. Okay, women and girls are affected differently, and we need, for once and for all, to develop policies, and the implementation, the programs, the projects need to take into consideration women and girls. Very easy example: the droughts. Women have to walk more to get the water. That means that their possibility of violence against them it's way higher. Or the question or issues like the tsunami. Who are those that the probability of dying during a tsunami? It's more a woman because they don't know how to swim. So these are very easy examples because of stigma, because of the stereotypes, that we need to look at all of this. And we cannot continue working in silos and in a tick-the-box process, including women and girls. Like, this is a tick-the-box process because it's not. We need to look at it. Also, when we see we have 5 more years to implement the Agenda 2030, our heads of state and government made very promising and none of them will be achieved if we don't invest in women and girls. And we continue acting like the way we are acting now. So, and now more on the synergies. Do you want me to stop or I can continue?
Let's stop there, and you leave the synergies for the
Because
next one.
If you want, I can continue on the synergies,
I'm
but I'm
sure.
happy to.
But in fact, I would just like to pick upon what you said about integration before Cecilia makes her initial statements. As for integration, we are also thinking of connecting this potential global coalition within the initiatives that we already have that tackle women and clients in the Portuguese-speaking countries. What is your view on that?
Absolutely, and I think more than ever, the CPLP, it's one of, I would say, groups like this that count. It's 4 regions of the world, 4 important regions of the world, that they are interconnected for something. It's global north, global south, east, west. They all have their own experience, and they bring together this huge amount of knowledge, because it's the other thing that we need to stop thinking is a one-size-fits-all. And I think the CPLP can bring precisely those visions from the Pacific to the Caribbean or to the Atlantic.
We have a super diverse coalition, right? Cecilia, now please, your initial statements.
Thank you very much. Allow me to first thank the government of Portugal for the invitation, for Her Excellency the State Secretary for Climate Action. She apologized not being able to be here. She's in consultations, ministerial consultations, and I'm here representing her. I may pick from my 2 colleagues. Inclusion, I think, is the first word, and inclusion should go beyond what we already have spoken about, but considering even within our government, inclusion of women in decision making. And I would bring inclusion to the CPLP level, inclusion of or consideration of women in decision-making processes within the North countries in our community, integrating women from the South in different capacity building programs, projects, to provide knowledge and capacity for those women to, within their countries, also promote other young women and even children. But one special aspect was raised here. Inclusion has to come with men, with boys. Women alone, we will just go the other way around. We have to start thinking and find a balance between both gender and consider gender as a whole, not only women. What I think we should look with this collision is the important role of women to bring boys and girls, young women, young boys, to a world where both can feel included and part of the decision that will be taken. So I would set it like this for now and wait for other questions to come. Thank you.
Thank you, Cecilia. So in the short term, we really have to tackle inclusion and then looking at all genders, I would say, and also the integration that Katarina raised. So Ryan, now, when we think about the potential synergies, so picking up on what Katarina has already mentioned, how should we measure the medium-term actions regarding COP30? So we are going to have 4 to 6 months to get there. Tell us, which are the actions that we need to implement in order to launch the global coalition?
I really appreciate the conversation here. And absolutely, right now, when you start with inclusion, you have to design the program from the beginning with the women and girls included. And as we noticed as well, gender means both male and female, and we get them all included. And then you actually have to have, and you saw it on the PowerPoint presentation, you have to have metrics. You have to be able to measure things. So you have to have the plan, and it has to be very systematic, and it has to be inclusive, and then you actually have to have deadlines and plans. And it's repetitive, I know, but it's important. And we really have to think about where, and the last moment, and I think you spoke to us, and it starts at the community level. So if you're going to have projects, you just can't think of these projects. They have to be holistic, but they have to go all the way down to the community and start at the community. What are we trying to achieve? And do we include everyone? And do we know what the goal is? And do we have metrics for that? And that's that's the planning process, which is, as you know, half the battle. Thank you.
Thank you. So, as I'm a consultant, metrics are of the essence. Without metrics, we can't compare, we can't understand the success. So, very good point, Ryan. So now, Katarina, tell us about the synergies.
I think, I could not agree more because we do need the data because that's where we're going to formulate the policies. But also, I think the issue of participation. I think Susanna spoke about during her presentation, it is fundamental. Women and girls need to be at the table. We need to have them, their needs, their rights need to be very clearly delineated in the design of the policies and also on the implementation, because we can have beautiful policies and we can have beautiful data and we can have everything, but if we don't implement, and we need to stop talking and we need to start acting and creating monitor mechanism to do that, and that's where comes the synergies. First of all, synergies among the three conventions, and the secretariat of the three conventions needs to come together, and we need to understand exactly how these three conventions, the work of these three conventions and women and girls are interrelated. Then it's how the focal points, the women's focal points, they play a critical role. How can we get more information? How can we know more? How can they push not only their own countries, but also the sharing? And I think that's what you're trying to do here, but also the CPLP, and how can CPLP be used to share best practices and lessons learned on these issues. And these are the spaces that we need to use. And of course, somehow the creation of a mechanism within the secretariats to also help member states delivering that commitment, those commitments, because we have countries that need capacity building, and that is also important. And finally, last but not least, financing. We need money, because without the money, we're not going anywhere.
Thank you, Katarina. Cecilia, please.
Thank you. I think all is said, but yeah, I think this coalition needs to be informed by our own national policies. We need to show how much are we considering this gender balance, how much are we including women and girls in our policies, in our programs, in our projects. We need this matrix that Ryan mentioned, because it will give us the basis to build a strong coalition and really identifying exactly what do we want. Having this is promoting women, yes, but how, why? We need to show how is it considered today, and how do we want it to be considered in future, and produce recommendations for those conventions on how they should act. I mean, with that, I think we will make the difference. We'll provide even information to be considered. I believe that will promote us a very good coalition. But let us look first inside our own policies as countries in the CPLP, as countries individually, and then we will have better recommendations to give.
Thank you so much. I just heard that we have to conclude our panel, so we will conclude with a challenge or a provocation that I will make here. What if we thought about our NDCs and NBSAPs, so the National Biodiversity Strategy and Action Plans from the countries, in terms of setting our milestones for the global coalition, because then we can get the funding we need. And we involve women since day zero on that, from the scratch, okay? Thank you so much for the opportunity. It was a pleasure. Thank you.
just to end the event and then afterwards. One person speaking. Sorry. One more question. Muito obrigada por esta inspiradora conversa. Vamos agora, para encerrar este evento, temos connosco a Alissa Mourinho, chefe de assessoria especial da ASCOP, assessoria extraordinária para a COP30, portanto aqui o Brasil connosco. Passo-lhe então a palavra para nos deixar umas palavras finais neste evento. Obrigada.
Muito obrigada. Thank you so much. Just put here. Yeah? No, pode ser isso aqui mesmo. Bom. It's a pleasure. I must say, it finished so abruptly that I was okay. What's the answer for that question? I was asking myself at the end, and I want to hear also the thoughts. But so, first of all, I wanted to say that I think the coalition is great. We need several coalitions. We need much more women power coming into COP30. As we start to think in Brazil about how we're going to get to Belém in 1 year time, we also think a lot about the process. In the end of the day, hosting a COP, it's not about the 2 weeks only. It's about what do you do in the 12 months that are previous to the COP, and the quality of the hearing, the quality of the engagement, the quality of the substance that you can bring to the COP to actually have strong political and implementation outcomes. As we know, I mean, for those that are following COPs for the past several decades or so, we are getting to a moment where the level of negotiations in these rooms is very nitty-gritty. But the real action, the real power of change, it's out there. It's not necessarily here. Of course, some of the political signals come from here. They are important. We need them. But we need to combine or to create coherence between the energy and what comes out of a COP with the action on the ground. That's why, as we think of course, we still don't have the presidents and the champions of the next COP defined. But as we think through this to design the agenda, the way the COP30 process will be coming, we think about 3 main elements that needs to walk hand in hand: the negotiations, the climate action agenda, and the mobilization. When I think about COP30, I think about a feminine COP. How do we bring that vision, that image that comes out of that in all these 3 pillars? I think the coalition, the way you were describing all the knowledge about what's inside the nitty-gritty of the negotiations, all the way towards bringing business leaders or different leaders to come out and speak about it and launch this kind of initiatives, is the exact example on how we can bridge all these elements. One of the convergences on what we are seeing in the COP30 committee and what was just described right here is also about the synergies of the conventions in a way. So how can we bring gender responsive NDC plans, country platforms, biodiversity plans all together in a way that we can actually facilitate implementation? This is a question mark that we are posing ourselves in the way we define the action agenda or all this process to get into the COP30. Because in the end of the day, the COP30 will be defined a lot about the quality and the ambition of the NDCs that are submitted beforehand, and we need to bring that in internally. Brazil, has just put forward its NDC, as you may have seen it. Actually, gender is a transversal aspect of it, but the real change on the ground will happen when we have the sectorial plans. So how can we take from those words, the gender responsive, the gender mainstream, into actual decisions in each of the sectors as we're going? So we are actually trying. We don't know exactly how to, we don't have a lot of experience on the ground on design these public policies, but we are trying. And this is something that our Ministry of Women, but also our Ministry of Environment and Climate Change is actually fully on board to do that. And we hope to see many other countries coming forward. one last point maybe I wanted to say is that whenever you think about Brazil and not only the gender, but also the inclusion agenda, which is so important, we need to think about the intersectionalities. We need to think about racial equity in a very strong sense. When you come to places like this and you think about Brazil, people tend to think very wisely and rightfully so with indigenous communities and actually white women like me representing the country in all those spaces. But Brazil is not only indigenous and white women, it's mostly black women. And they are precisely the ones that are actually the most vulnerable, the ones that are lagging behind in several of those processes, and the ones that we need to bring in. That's why we worked as a government very strongly in Cali to have the recognition of Afro-descendants as part of the Cali decision. That's why we are working this here, and that's why we want to bring this intersectionality very strongly to Belém and to the process of the COP. So we are all ears. This is the moment to hear ideas, visions on how we can do it. We are very committed, and it was a pleasure to meet you all. Thank you.
Eu queria só pedir, se temos só um cântico final. Só para terminarmos da forma bonita que começamos. Obrigada.
Aitashiratarata Kupi, Kakiri Neretama Tururu Cariúca. Meu nome é Thaísa, eu sou indígena, sou do povo Amagocambeba, venho do Rio Sou de Mães, o meu povo, sou do Amazonas e do Brasil também. Eu vou cantar uma música para vocês, que na nossa comunidade a gente canta bastante, porque tem a ver com festa, com comida, e eu espero muito que vocês gostem, e ele passa uma espiritualidade muito forte. Tana Kambeba Iawakwi Tushus Katuaya Purashi Atawari Wakamai Pitani Kuacheta Piquira Tana Tushus Kaimit Shitopayuaru Subicurata Enei o verano Tanatushus Kaimid Chitopayuaru Subicurata Enei o verano O Pacana Tariguinei o Fani Tawashi Sapucatara Atawari Wakamai Pitani Kuacheta Piquira Tanatushus Kaimit Chitopayuaru Supicurata Enei o verano Tanatushus Kaimit Chitopayuaru Supicurata Enei o verano. Chito Manito, muito obrigada.
Muito obrigada a nós. E terminamos o evento. E agora só peço aos oradores. I ask the speakers just to take a final photo. Okay, thank you.